Yes.
I think it's smart.
Terms is plenty. He was gonna run. Good. You know, personally, he was just a person.
Test.
Face of the city. I think that's what's going on. I've gotta talk to Trilla today though, because he's not up. I don't wanna get into it.
Talk to Mulch.
Are you? Yeah, I don't wanna get into it. Esther's a-
Okay, the hour of 9 o'clock having arrived, I'd like to call the Executive Committee meeting for Wednesday, October 7th, 2020 to order. And just like to say that this is over 200 Executive Committee and board meetings that we've started right on time out of respect to your schedules. So we haven't kept you waiting. With that, I'd like to ask the clerk call the roll.
Allen. Praz. Hanson.
Here.
O'Shea.
Here.
Igbal.
Iqbal present.
Kenyon. Leonard.
Here.
Lewis.
Lewis here.
Martin. Sanchez.
Here.
Shefflo. Surges. Weber.
Present.
Oniki. Present. Thomas.
Thomas here.
Okay, and if you'd add Doug Shefflo to the roll. And we have a quorum. Okay, I'd like to ask Kathy Gilmore, who's a guest this morning, who's the Executive Director of the Valley Industrial Association. It's 118 years serving the Fox Valley, 200 manufacturing members. If you'd come forward to the podium and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. And Kathy's going to give us 3-4 minute orientation later on under public comment about VIA. But Kathy,
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. May I have a motion and a second to approve the minutes from the September 2nd, 2020 meeting? So moved by Mr. Kenyon, second by Ms. Wonicky. Are there any adjustments, comments? Seeing none, any from anybody on the telephone? Hearing none, clerk call the roll.
Allen. Praz. Hanson.
Yes.
O'Shea.
Yes.
Igbal.
Iqbal, yes.
Kenyon. Leonard.
Yes.
Lewis.
Yes.
Martin. Sanchez.
Yes.
Shefflo.
Yes.
Surges. Thomas.
Yes.
Weber.
Yes.
Oniki. Yes.
Okay, the minutes are approved. May I have a motion and a second to approve the 2021 holiday schedule? This is interesting. This is a chicken and egg kind of thing because the chief judge already, gives an order, issues an order, but I think that it's a good thing to have it ratified by the board. So moved by Mr. Kenyon, second by Ms. Allen. Thank you, Ms. Allen. Would you add her to the roll also, please? Are there any comments or adjustments? That was a pretty much done deal. So seeing none, from anybody on the phone? Hearing none, clerk call the roll.
Allen. Hanson.
Yes.
O'Shea.
Yes.
Igbal.
Iqbal, yes.
Kenyon. Leonard.
Yes.
Lewis.
Yes.
Sanchez.
Yes.
Shefflo. Surges. Thomas.
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Warnicki. Yes.
Good, the calendar's approved, accepted. Now, public comment, actions in place, public comments on file. I know that we have one person for sure this morning. Kathy Gilmore, I believe that you're going to give us a presentation. We do have the slides are loaded in, if I'm not mistaken. Is that right, Blair and Roger?
Yes.
Okay, so if you'd come up to the podium, and there's a microphone there. And will 3 to 4 minutes be sufficient?
That'll be perfect.
All right. Because it is on an agenda item, and so it would be by rules a 5 minute,
Thank you.
3-4 minutes. This is a background on what the VIA is. So, Ms. Gilmore?
Yes, thank you so much. My name is Kathy Gilmore. I'm the president of the Valley Industrial Association, and we're just around the corner right here in Geneva. We have a small staff of 3 full-time staff members that are pictured up there on the board. And we have a volunteer board of directors that serves our organization. So a lean, small but mighty organization. We were actually founded back in 1902. And oops, hold on one sec. And we have some founding members that are still part of our organization today. We're very proud of the influential group that is part of our association. We, according to the VIA history books, take credit for finding Waubonsee Community College, Illinois Math and Science Academy, and also Fermilab to the area. We have a membership of over 200 member companies. 70% roughly are industrial in nature. So we have industrial warehouse type settings, plastics, paper, food, beverage, metals, you name it, are part of our organization. And the commonality is that they all believe in professional development for their employees. We're very proud of the other 30% that is professional service in nature, which help us with our content and subject matter expertise so that we're presenting the best information to our companies when we do our education and training events. We have how we provide value to our organizations are what we call our 3 pillars, and those pretty much embody everything that we do. And so I'm going to give you a quick snapshot of each one. The tools for best practices, probably what we're most proud about in that category, is a new benchmarking tool that we just created within the last couple of years with our member companies, where we allow them to self-assess on 10 best practices within each of those 6 categories. So culture, innovation, operations, safety, et cetera. And what's really neat about that tool is that it is an open source tool, so it's right on our website. So any companies, whether you're a member or not, can access those tools and see what's best practices so that you can form your strategic plans for the year and goals. Another example of one of the pillars is our second pillar, which is member-focused education. And what we do in that category is professional development for our peer groups, leadership training, supervisory classes. We also do excellence forums based on those 6 categories I mentioned in benchmarking. And that's a little snapshot of our 2020. You can kind of see, to me, it's a little bit comical because of all of the changes that had to happen over 2020, because our 100 events that we do in the year are typically in person. And so we had to do a lot of pivoting. We had a couple months where we didn't have any programming, but what we did was switch everything to virtual and postpone most of what we do. So we were still able to provide value by support services to our organizations. The third pillar is connections for growth, and that's just one example of that is how we connect with the local high schools and help our companies showcase all the different opportunities for careers within their plants. And we're normally do close to 1,000 tours, but we're very proud that we had over 1,300 tours that we helped coordinate this last year. And then this year, we really have potential to blow the doors off of that with our virtual options now, because most companies are pivoting to that type of a platform to showcase all that they do in those settings. So it's kind of an exciting opportunity. So thank you so much. That's just a quick, brief summary of what the VIA offers to the community. And we just are proud to present today. So thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Ms. Gilmore. let's see, I just want to also thank Kathy for volunteering to also serve on our three-county workforce investment board. So she's one of the 40 members that helps invest between $5 and $7 million a year in job development and training in the three counties of Kendall, DeKalb, and Kane. So thank you, Kathy. Okay, are there any other public comments? Anybody else like to make any comments? Anybody on the phone? Okay, hearing none, we'll go to the next item, monthly financial statements. Joe? Mr. Onsick is here to present the monthly financials.
Good morning.
Morning.
I had prepared a presentation for you that was sent out during the night for you, and this is it. And basically, it's just to confirm that the budget is balanced. The gap was closed. We have roughly $2.3 million more now in expenditures and revenue than we did last year's budget. And I'm not going to go through this entire list for you, but I just wanted to have it in one document for you, for your records. And I went through this at the committee of the whole. We started with a budget gap of $14,565,000. And then this itemizes the various changes that were made to bring that budget gap down. There's about 3 pages of those changes. So it brought it down to the $3.3 million. And then from there, I had presented to you some proposed additional reductions that we could make. Those have been made. The judiciary reduction was made with approval by the chief judge. Have not heard from state's attorneys, so we went ahead and used the lower option of the reduction to the salary line item. And then the coroner, we had heard from him, and he preferred not to reduce salaries. So we needed to shift more over into the FICA and IMRF fund to help offset the cost of those salaries. And then instead, in lieu of the reduction of the salaries, he chose to reduce the autopsy budget of the options that we gave him by $258,000. So that, in addition to the $2.3 million that we would be carrying over from this year as a result of savings generated for reimbursement of payroll expenditures by the Coronavirus Relief Fund, that is what brought the budget gap down to 0. This balanced budget assumes that $592,000 of savings from the CARE Act payroll reimbursement would be transferred to Fund 125. By having that cash on hand in Fund 125 over the next few years, that would enable us to pay the yearly body camera lease payments out of Fund 125 instead of the general fund. And then mentioning those savings, we still believe that there'll be an estimate of a total of $21,500,000 of savings generated by payroll reimbursement. We're estimating that $6.1 million of it would be needed this year to offset revenue reductions. Then we have the use of the $592,000 that I just mentioned that would be transferred into the Fund 125. And so that would still leave us with $14.8 million of savings that we'll be carrying forward. From that, we would be using $5,660,000 of it to offset the revenue reductions next year that would be resulting from COVID. And then we have that additional $2,337,000 that was just referenced that we needed to close the budget gap. After having reduced that, that still leaves us with $6.8 million of savings that would be available for other things or to help us balance future years' budgets. The one thing I thought was important to mention, we are not needing to use anything from the Emergency Reserve Fund for this year or next year as a result of the savings that are generated by the payroll reimbursement from the Coronavirus Relief Fund. So we still have $5.2 million in the emergency reserve that's untouched. And just for your reference, the timeline that we have now for finishing up the budget process, the draft budget would be approved to be placed on public display at next week's board meeting. The budget would be placed on display on October 23rd. That's by statutory requirement. And November 10th, of course, is when the budget would be adopted. And the last thing I wanted to note is that we're in the process of preparing the draft budget document. We'll send it out to you as soon as possible. I think tomorrow is possible, so that you have it in advance of the board meeting. The budget will contain everything that has already been presented to you, so there is no surprise buried in there. So I think you'll find that it's everything you're expecting to find. And that is it for my presentation.
Okay, are there any questions for Mr. Onsick? Okay, seeing none in the room. Any from folks on the phone? Hearing none. Just like to make the observation that this is now 8 years in a row that we've had, well, first of all, balanced budget. I appreciate the special emphasis that you put on that, Joe. I know that it's, everybody knows it's political season, so you read things in the paper that are said in endorsement hearings and things like that, and it's an impossible kind of task. It's like, it's a political season, so things are said, understood. But I would like to thank everybody who pitched in to produce the balanced budget. That means every board member who has been a part, especially in the Finance Committee. Thank you very much. All the department directors who have pitched in and done their share. All the countywide elected officials who did a great job of stepping forward. It's all very good. We're all very grateful, and we're doing it as it should be done for our 532,000 constituents. There is plenty of time between now. Number two is there's plenty of time between now and Friday for any board member who would like to put in any ideas or like to ask Joe any questions, all those kinds of things. When it comes to the board meeting, there shouldn't be surprises when you're talking about other people's money. So we're attentive. If you want to call Joe, if you want to call me, doors always open, phones always answered. And that does mean that now for 8 years in a row, you've had a frozen county and forest preserve combined property tax levy. We're actually running those two government organizations with less dollars, not tax rates, but dollars than we did 8 years ago. We've reduced the debt by at least 50%, so we've cut the public borrowing in half. We fully funded the pensions at 95%, and then it's fully transparent under the auditor's program where you can go on the internet, you can look over our shoulders. Any constituent can go onto the internet, look over our shoulders, and give us advice on what we need to do better. So completely transparent. And then as Joe has pointed out, both at Finance and then at this meeting this morning, there are going to be very substantial reserves that this board and myself are going to pass on to future boards. So, with approval of this budget, we pass on the baton to the next group of leadership. Okay, our Chairman of Finance and Budget, John Hoscheit, I believe that there are 20 items that you'd like to present and move today. I would, if you'd like, I'd be happy to call for a motion and a second to send the resolution authorizing fiscal year 20 coroner's budget adjustment back to the Finance Committee to amend at their January meeting in order to base the budget adjustment on actual expenditures rather than on projected expenditures.
So moved.
Okay, so moved by Mr. Hoscheit, second by Mr. Leonard. Any discussion on that? Seeing none, any from the phone, members of the phone? Okay, hearing none, clerk call the roll.
Allen. Hanson. Hoshait.
Yes.
Igball. Kenyon. Leonard.
Yes.
Lewis.
Yes.
Martin. Sanchez.
Yes.
Cheflo.
Yes.
Surges. Thomas.
Yes.
Weber.
Yes.
Winnicki. Yes. Igball.
Iqbal present.
Okay, now, just, Dr. Iqbal, we will make a note. I received your note about the abstention on one of the items in the finance agenda. If you wish, you can vote on the other ones that don't affect you personally.
I vote. Thank you.
Okay. So would you like to vote on that?
For the other items, yes.
Okay. Okay, so let's see. So that motion passes. Okay. Now, I believe that it's number 2 through 22, not item 21. Mr. Hoshait, would you rise, please, and we'll follow up on your desires.
All right, I'm going to move approval items 2 through 20 and item 22.
Okay, so moved by Mr. Hoshait, second by Mr. Leonard. Mr. Hoshait.
All right, item 2 is the budget for the homeless prevention and rehousing services. Item 3 is the 2020 budget for the cross-country course. Item 4 is revised housekeeping matter regarding the county's use of the coronavirus relief funds. Item 5 is purchasing protective gear for the sheriff. Item 6 is a contract for Kane County NCR form services. 7 is a Microsoft licensing agreement. 8 is a contract with One Hope United for multi-systemic therapy services. 9 is a maintenance agreement for our stream and rainfall gauges. 10 is Kane County snow plowing services. 11 is Mill Creek SSA snow plowing services. 12 is our contract for vending machines. 13 is purchase of gasoline and fuel. 14 is personnel hiring replacement. 15 authorizes rehiring of a animal control warden. 16 is authorizing the process to begin to replace the director of purchasing. 17 authorizes an RFP to be issued for liquidity monitoring and treasury services analysis. 18 is a reimbursement for board membership renewal. 19 is approval of the annual bond that we purchased for our auditor. 20 is approving the final draft budget as presented by Mr. Onzik. And 22 is payment of our monthly bills.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Hoshait. Any thoughts or questions? Mr. Kenyon, would you please rise?
I'd like to move that we take number 18 out of the consent agenda.
Okay. Okay, let's see. Any questions that you'd like to ask at this time?
Well, Dr. Eckvall would like to be reimbursed for his law license, so we should probably pay for John Hoshait and Doug Shefflo's, and maybe Dr. Silva's thing. These are not the times to have that kind of occur.
Okay,
Surprised that he put it in there.
okay. So I'll take that off of the consent agenda and we'll consider it individually on the county board.
Yes.
Okay, other thoughts, comments? Cliff, Mr. Surges, sorry.
Did I miss 21?
No, 21 is taken off. It was contingent on a meeting taking place to have the 3-county board, WIB board, consider that. And that did not take place. And we'll consider that at a future time. Mr. Weber.
Thank you, Chairman Lawson. In regards to 21, there's been a lot of things developing this week, and it was contingent upon a meeting happening October 7th. The meeting is now scheduled for early November. I feel like it's like a $488,000 contract, but it affects our constituents. We did have some issues with it, but I feel like everything is worked out. I'd like to make a motion to approve it, because I know it's a good contract for the workforce development program and for people that are seeking training and stuff like that. So I'd like to add.
The agreement of why it got on this agenda was that there was going to be a meeting to take place by today, and that meeting has not taken place. Certainly, you can make any motion that you desire, but it's going to be considered at that Workforce Development Board, because it's not just our money, it's DeKalb County's money and also Kendall County's money.
No, I understand what you're saying. In conversation I had with Katie Beta, who's in charge of workforce development, the meeting is scheduled for early November, and that's something that she really wants to have it go through.
Yes, at that time. So, okay. So we have a motion from Mr. Weber, a second by Mr. Kenyon, and Mr. Hoshai.
Just a point of order for clarification. I understand that Mr. Weber's desire is to move item 21 to the full board for a vote. And, but I would suggest we do, just to clarify the record, that the matter before this group right now is 2 through 20 and then 22. So if we vote on that issue, then the next item would be to consider number 21, and then we could vote to move that on. So if we could, if the chair would be inclined to take a vote on the original motion with respect to the bulk of the agenda items, then we can address 21.
Good, that's correct.
So the clerk doesn't go
Very-
crazy trying to
That's
keep
very good.
accurate
I
minutes.
appreciate that. Good. Mr. Hoshait's right. So any other comments on number 2 through 20 and then number 22? Mr. Shefflow? Would you rise, please?
Mr. Iqbal's reimbursement, is that subtracted from?
18 in or out?
I'm sorry, 18 is out.
18, for purpose of clarification, 18 would move on, but it would be off consent, so that we would have a discussion and then a full board vote then.
Okay, and we'll make a special note for the clerk and myself. Okay, thank you for the clarification. Mr. Surges? Okay. Okay. Any other thoughts from people present in the room? Seeing none. Any from people on the telephone? Hearing none. Clerk, call the roll.
Allen? Hanson?
Yes.
Hoshait?
Yes.
Igbal?
Iqbal, yes.
Kenyon?
Yes.
Leonard?
Yes.
Lewis?
Yes.
Sanchez?
Yes.
Cheflo?
Yes.
Surges? Thomas?
Yes.
Weber?
Yes.
Warnicki? Yes.
Okay, so the motion passes. Now, Mr. Hoshait, on number 21?
Yes, for purposes of discussion, I'll move that we advance 21 to the full county board for consideration.
Okay, for discussion purposes, Mr. Hoshait moves. I believe that Mr. Weber seconds. So further conversation. Okay, okay, Miss Allen, would you rise, please?
Kept things turned on. Just wanted to ask what the date is for that November meeting, if I could.
I don't have the exact date off the top of my head, but I can get it.
Yeah, from what I understand, it's the first week in November.
Thank you.
And the typical process is that 40 volunteers from 3 counties get together. They elect a chairman from that group, which is Katie Beta, and they move all of this material. And then once they've taken their action and approved it, and it becomes soup, ready to serve, then it goes to the board here. And it's out of that order that has been followed for 8 years, every resolution that I'm familiar with. So this is unusual. I don't think that it is proper. So, but I respect the, you know, folks can make motions and make votes as they desire. Okay. And I have, by the way, I have attended every single one of these WIB meetings, 7:30 a.m. Many times it's on a Wednesday before this meeting. We have Mr. Leonard serves on it. Ron Ford has served on in the past as a board member and then as a business owner. And so we have representation from the board here, but it's, this is not ours until it's properly moved through that WIB. That WIB is not our board. That WIB is the 3 chief elected officials, CEOs, under the DCEO rules, and they make the appointments to 40. In the past, it's been about $5.7 million is allocated to job placement and job training, all very good things. That's now up to, I believe, $7.2 million. And so, I mean, it's very substantial. It was, by the way, it was a total mess when I first got here. People were accusing other people, both in meetings and privately, of fraud. Come to my Senate office and accuse what was going on of fraud. And we came in, people were at each other's throats. We resolved that. It's now where it was a very negative atmosphere. Now it's a very productive atmosphere. I give credit to Katie Beta and also to the board members who are serving now. And so I think that we should respect the process that's in place there. So, okay, Mr. Shefflow.
Yeah, so in this Zoom period, what's the reluctance on this board meeting? Is it one a year?
Oh,
And
by the rules, by the bylaws, not only of the group itself, of the Workforce Investment Board, it's at least 4 times a year. It hasn't met in 16 months. By November, it'll be 17 months. You know, only we are paying $143,000 a year to one of our department directors to run this responsibility. Those meetings have not taken place. I think that that is wrong. I believe that the leadership, you know, the chief elected officials feel that it's wrong. The chairman has asked multiple times, feels that it's wrong. And so it was, for the last meeting was May 19th of 2019, not of this year, but of a year ago. So all the time and all the meetings, so there's supposed to be 6 meetings by this time, and 0 have taken place. When it finally sunk in what was happening here, I sent up the flares, talked to the leadership, talked to DCEO, and have we are working cooperatively with the chairman of the other counties, the elected chairmen, so the CEOs, chief elected officials. We're working with the chairman of the WIB. We're working with the co-chairman of the Jobs Committee to square it away. And now I'm glad that there are those, you know, the meetings for next year have been established. The next meeting for November has been established where we can consider this, have it agreed to, if that's the will of the Workforce Investment Board, and then bring it here for approval at our next meeting, at either executive if it's on time, or for sure at the board meeting. So we're that month away from having this take place. Mr. Leonard?
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Weber, I wanted to ask you, in speaking with Katie Beta, did she say there would be any problem if we let her board approve it first and then we went to executive or county board in November, would that delay cause any problems?
She was comfortable with it moving forward now prior to the meeting. She feels like any issues that we were having, correspondence, meetings, she has corrected. I'm just fearful that currently right now, we're being monitored by the state because we're not using the funds correctly. We're at risk of actually losing funding if we don't spend it correctly. So I'm afraid if we push this another month, it might look like we're continuously not spending money correctly. So I'm just looking at it more of knowing that Katie has got it corrected. She knows what the contract's about. She's all for it. I just don't want to continue to be on the radar from the state. They can either give us more money right now or take away money. So I want to spend it like we're supposed to.
Well, yeah, I'd like to say that I'm very much in favor of this. I just want to make sure we use the proper process. And, you know, I'm wondering too, if the three county chairpersons, yourself, DeKalb, and Kendall, are they in agreement with?
We are
Katie's?
not.
Okay.
We are not, and this is not solved. And I talked to Katie Beta at 5:30 last night. This is not the proper way to do our work, period. Period. I have attended, again, I've attended every one of these meetings. You have to ask yourselves on this board, have you attended any of those meetings for any time in your life? And so to make judgments here, you have to at least be there to see how it works. We have what I consider, and I think that Mr. Weber describes it accurately when he says that, I mean, we have some steps that have to be covered. Katie Beta is confident, as I am confident, because I believe that Mr. Weber and Mr. Iqbal, Mr. Petrowski, Mr. Greider, Ms. Beta, myself, will take the steps in the next week or so to put this back on track. I do have under committee report, just a brief update, but it's not soup yet, so it's not done yet. I appreciate that we want to move things along. It'll move along at the point that, we have the proper governance steps having taken place. So I would request, but the vote belongs to you, I would request that you do not approve this. I mean, it's out of order. Is the world going to end? Of course not. But is the signals that you are sending to the other people who serve in my role is horrible. They trust me because I came in 8 years ago and we got this squared away. And so they gave us the ability to even have our person with 60% of the appointments to that board, our person, our staff member. It's up to us to solve that, the problem that we have. So it's a little backwards. We're close. So that's where I agree with Mr. Weber, but we are certainly not done with the solution. Oh, I'm sorry. And I talked to Katie Beta last night at 5:30. I came away from that conversation thinking that we were going to do some work and then we're going to do this properly. So,
Mr. Chairman, I have a
so
question.
do we have other comments? Ms. Thomas.
This is Ms. Thomas. So I agree with you, Mr. Chairman, that too much time has passed since the Workforce Investment Board last met. But again, the executive committee, which voted on this contract, includes representatives from all three counties, including Ms. Gilmore, who we just heard from this morning. I am not sure why, you are raising such alarm at this point in time. You have not been so adamant with the Jobs Committee, and we cannot put the responsibility of lack of meetings on fully on staff. The staff is there to serve the board. And so we have a chair, we have a vice chair, we have an executive committee. If things were so dire, we should have heard, or the chairs, Mr. Iqbal, Mr. Weber should have heard from the chair or the vice chair, or quite frankly, any member of the WIB to express their concerns. And so the timing of all of this, you know, we have all these questions now about our staff, and that is not the reputation of that office or the director. And so I would ask that going on the reputation and the past performance of the director and the Office of Community Reinvestment, we move this resolution forward for the full board's consideration. Thank you.
Okay, understood. Now, Ms. Thomas, I don't mean this in an antagonistic way, but have you ever attended one of those meetings?
Yes, I have. I have not attended as many as you, Mr. Chairman, but yes, I have.
Have you attended a Workforce Investment Board meeting?
At one of the at some of the committee meetings,
Okay.
youth program committee meetings. Yes, I have.
Okay, and let me say to the members of the executive committee that the concern is not staff in general. We have a couple of people, we get this deep into something. This should not be taking place. But Renee and Maria have done spectacular job. I would take them onto any team that I led any day of the week. We have a problem with Scott Berger not fulfilling the responsibilities of 6 meetings in 16, 17 months, those not taking place. I have brought it before Jobs Committee. It's been discussed twice, and it wasn't until this week that we actually got the commitment, actually got the meeting scheduled. So we have taken it to the Jobs Committee, and they're working their way through the problem. So those kinds of steps are being taken. So I think I saw, Mr. Oshite, your hand went up.
Mr. Chairman, I would suggest that if there are personnel concerns, they're appropriately discussed in executive session. But in any vote we take as a board member, and every vote that I've taken so far, my vote is directed at doing what's best for the constituents. And it's my understanding that if this board approves this and has it teed up, so to speak, at the November meeting, then we'll be able to get the funds out to the intended recipients sooner rather than later. So I'm going to support Mr. Weber's motion because he's the chairman of the committee that this comes to, and based on his knowledge of the procedure and his comfort level in dealing with the chairman of the Workforce Development Board, that we're headed on the right path, that I think we should do this.
Okay, again, I emphasize, this is not a Kane County Board prerogative. If you read the regulations from DCEO, the state agency, the federal money comes to the state agency, then to the board. There are 3 counties. That means Scott Greider, Mark Petrowski, and myself. This is not the proper way of going through this. Of course, we're all in favor of serving our constituents. Now, finally, that a meeting has been called, the matter will be taken up by the proper group. It'll be approved, and we'll be able to go forward with it. As far as the monitoring audit that is going on this week, certainly they take that into consideration. I have I have 3 decades relationship with these people. They understand that when there's a problem, you put it up on top of the table, you deal with it honestly, and then you move on. So this is not an appropriate way of advancing something that is good in its substance, but really wrong in its process. So, Ms. Allen?
I just wanted to say that we have had processes in place where we've spent federal money with CDBG, Community Development Block Grant, And we also have a process for spending our riverboat money. And we rely on the committee to do the homework and then move it forward to exec and move it forward to full board. And when other board members have questions or comments, they tend to call the committee and say, here's my input on this, which we then take into consideration. So I'm just, it's awkward because I see a process that we use successfully, and then here, for some reason, we're trying to jump over the process. So I prefer the process.
Okay, Mr. Weber?
Thank you, Chairman. So the process that went wrong, so everyone understands, is that it was not done through the full WIB board meeting, but it was discussed and vetted and approved at the executive committee meeting. That's why I am in support of it. I know the process. Chairman Lawson is not wrong that there was not meetings, and we need to come up with a solution so that proper protocols get followed moving forward. It's too bad that it didn't happen and we're at this point. But in this particular scenario, the executive committee approved it. Katie Beta, she's for it. And that's why I'm in support of it for this time. And I think we have a solution to fix it moving forward. Thank you.
Okay, may I ask, I'm sorry, Mr. Weber, to put you on the spot like this, but this is incorrect. How recently did you ask Katie Beta as far as her approval? I understand a preference is immediately, but how recent?
10 minutes before this meeting started, I talked to her.
Well, okay, we're ahead of ourselves, but I understand.
We call the question?
Yeah. Yeah,
Can we call the question, Mr. Chairman?
well, we have one more person who would like to. Did you have something that you wanted to add? Deb?
I just wanted to ask when the executive meeting was that approved it, if someone knows.
We'll have to look that up. We'll have to look that up. I mean, I'm assuming that it was approved. Executive committee, but you know executive committees don't run organizations, that there's always in place full board notification, but no full board has met in 16, it'll be 17 months, all backwards. So,
The reason that I asked was we have an executive meeting, and then approximately a week later, we have our full board. So I just wondered if that was a time continuum that would have made sense for this as well.
right, that's how it would have gone if we didn't get out of step on it. So, we've been asked to call the question. I think that we've had probably enough conversation on it. Would the clerk call the roll, please?
Allen,
No.
Hanson,
Yes.
Hoshait,
Yes.
Igbal,
No.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Leonard,
No.
Lewis,
Lewis, no.
Sanchez,
Yes.
Shefflo,
No.
Surges, Thomas?
Yes.
Was that yes, Ms. Thomas?
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Wonicky? No. Six yeses, 7 noes.
Okay, thank you. So motion fails. Okay, next on the agenda. Let's see. I think that takes care of everything from the finance and budget standpoint. Mr. Hoshait, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Our Chairman of Judicial and Public Safety, Bill Leonard, believe that you'd like to present and move one item.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. The one item we would like to move forward is a reappointment of Peter Bergert of St. Charles as Chairman of the Merit Commission.
Okay. Is there a second? So moved by Mr. Hanson. Any discussion? Seeing none, hearing none, clerk call the roll.
Allen,
Aye.
Hanson,
Yes.
Hoshait,
Yes.
Iqbal,
Iqbal, yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Leonard,
Yes.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Sanchez,
Yes.
Shefflo,
Yes.
Surges, Thomas,
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Warnicki. Yes.
Okay, motion passes. Our Chairman of Transportation, Mr. Fraz, have you joined the meeting? Hearing not, then who is Vice Chairman of, okay, Mr. Kenyon. I believe that you'd like to present and move 3 items?
Mr. Chairman, fellow board members, this is the shortest transportation list I've seen. Drew is with his wife in Washington State and asked me to introduce this. The first is approving adopt a highway program applicants. Second is approving the establishment of a speed limit on Long Meadow Parkway. The third is appropriation for Union Pacific Railroad Inc. for Kirk Road over Union Pacific Railroad Engineering Review. Kane
Microphone.
Drive.
Okay.
Pretty simple, but the speed limit's gonna be 45 up there.
Okay.
But that'll be a revenue source for me because nobody can go 45.
Okay, so moved by Mr. Kenyon, second by Mr. Weber. Any questions, discussion? Seeing none. Any from participants on the phone? Hearing none. Clerk, call the roll.
Allen,
Aye.
Hanson,
Yes.
Hoshait,
Yes.
Iqbal,
Iqbal, yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Leonard,
Yes.
Lewis,
Yes.
Sanchez,
Yes.
Shefflo,
Yes.
Surges, Thomas,
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Warnicki. Yes.
Okay, motion passes. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Under executive, we have several items. I think all of these will be taken individually. First of all, may I have a motion and a second to approve a resolution authorizing certain actions relative to tax agents? That's a routine thing that we do each month. Ms. Allen moves, second by Mr. Shefflo. Any discussion? Seeing none, hearing none. Clerk, call the roll.
Allen,
Aye.
Hanson,
Yes.
Hoshait,
Yes.
Iqbal,
Iqbal, yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Leonard, Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Martin, Sanchez,
Yes.
Shefflo,
Yes.
Surges, Thomas,
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Warnicki. Yes.
Okay, motion passes. Okay. Next is a resolution. May I have a motion and a second to approve a resolution authorizing intergovernmental grant agreement 418022 with the State of Illinois, Illinois Criminal Justice Information Authority. So moved by Mr. Leonard, second by Mr. Weber. Any discussion? Seeing none, any from anyone on the phone? Hearing none, clerk, call the roll.
Allen,
Aye.
Hanson,
Yes.
Hoshait,
Yes.
Iqbal,
Iqbal, yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Leonard,
Yes.
Lewis,
Yes.
Sanchez,
Yes.
Shefflo,
Yes.
Surges, Thomas,
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Warnicki. Yes.
Okay, the motion passes. Next, may I have a motion and a second for resolution approving a new daily rate for housing detainees in agreement with the U.S. Marshal. So moved by Mr. Leonard, second by Ms. Wojnicki. Any discussion? Well, first of all, Mr. Leonard, and then we're going to go to Mr. Kenyon. Mr. Leonard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to point out to everybody on the executive committee and the county board that the sheriff has negotiated a new rate for the federal detainees. The rate used to be, I believe, $65 a day. The new rate will be $95 a day. So this is going to bring some much-needed revenue generation to our county, and I'd like to thank the sheriff personally for what he's done here. It's a great move, and it's going to help the county out tremendously.
He is here with us today, and thank you very much, Sheriff Hain, for the excellent work in this area. So, thank you. Mr. Kenyon.
That's exactly what I was going to say, and say thank you for your hard work. And it's going to make a difference in our budget. So good job, Sheriff Hain.
Yes. Okay. Good. Other comments or questions? Seeing none, any from anyone on the phone? Okay, Ms. Thomas?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I too would just like to say congratulations.
I'm
to the
sorry, Ms.
sheriff.
Thomas, we can't hear you. Would you be a little closer to the microphone?
Yes, can you hear me now?
A little bit better.
Okay. Hear me?
Okay, you have the floor.
Okay, can you hear me?
Okay, if you'll speak, we'll be able to make an assessment.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just would like to say congratulations to the sheriff as well for his ability to get this contract back in place and to bring this revenue to the county. And I'm just curious, does this relationship with the U.S. Marshals, is there some requirement with respect to the county's interaction with ICE? I'm just curious about that.
It's actually an excellent question. Sheriff Haynes coming to the microphone. Could you turn it on? Good. I think you got it.
There we go. Thank you, Ms. Thomas, for asking that question. So my staff and I are very passionate about the immigration issue, and we do not coordinate with ICE at the sheriff's office as far as detention goes. And even though it is mentioned in one sentence of the contract, which is a national contract template for the U.S. Marshals, we do have say-so in who and how many detainees we take every single day. And we've made it very clear that we will not accept immigration detainees, U.S. Marshal detainees only.
Okay. Also, the question.
Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Thomas, would you like further clarification?
No, I was just saying thank you.
Okay. Also, as part of that contract, actually, I was very surprised about 4 years ago, or no, it would have been, I don't know, 4 years ago. When I came back from Christmas break, I was in one of those jolly moods to start a new year well. And it was, 4 years ago under the, under the previous administration. So I don't know, is that 5 years? I called the federal marshal because I didn't know him so well. I called just to thank. There was like a list of people who are crucial partners because they produce such an impact on the burden that our taxpayers have. So I call him up. I go, Mr. Marshall, thank you very much for the relationship. He goes, well, Chris, thanks very much for calling me today. But did you realize that the bus is over at your jail and they're taking the final detainees out today? Delighted the surrounding counties because they had the benefit of what's being restored. But within the first week of the previous administration, I had not been told, no board member had been told, unilateral decision had been made, and we lost at least $2.5 million of revenue a year. So when Ms. Thomas asked the question and Sheriff Hain is close to the details of that contract, I think that it is something that is a cooperative effort among the board because it has such a big impact. And that's why it's such a big deal for some of us who experience the pain that one decision, unilateral, without communicating to anybody, made. So thanks. And Ms. Thomas, that is something that with the sheriff's approval, would be an important thing to put in place for the future. Do you have thoughts on that, Sheriff?
Yeah, I do. I just want to point out that this contract is very fragile. So it took us a good year and a half to get into a place where we could even bring it to the county board. And there are a lot of things at play. We had to become PREA compliant, that's a Prison Rape Elimination Act, with which the sheriff's office ignored since 2015 and was not compliant. That was a massive lift. We had to get our jail population down to a manageable level to allow this opportunity to come into place. And any significant uptick, and we're talking 15, 20% uptick in jail population, could compromise this relationship. So that's why EHM is so important. That's why cooperation from our judicial managers and our state's attorney's office is going to be so important over the next couple of years to ensure this. If we do have to decrease the marshal's population, that also equals a decrease in revenue. And of course, we have to put our Kane County detainees first in priority when it comes to our general service. So I'll be looking for the board in the year to come and in the years ahead to support me as we closely monitor how fragile this contract is.
Good. Mr. Sheffel had his hand up, and then I'm going to go to Mr. Leonard. Mr. Sheffel?
Two questions. The federal detainees, that's something that's going to come in the future, or are they already present?
No, so we have to have your approval, the board's approval on this contract, and then we're looking around December 1st.
Okay. What about the status of the inmates that are supposed to be in the state prison system? Have they been removed yet or paid for yet?
Yeah, so we're at a point where we're down to 4 or 5 detainees as of today that have been IDOC sentenced, and that's from where we originally started at 44. So over the last month, Department of Corrections have opened their doors, and they've committed zero return on paying us for it, but we've been aggressive in sending them invoices. So we'll just keep sending them invoices and see what happens. Maybe we'll get reimbursement in 10 years or so.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Leonard?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to point out, when the sheriff had mentioned EHM, the electronic home monitoring system, that is also an initiative from the sheriff that has reduced our expense in detainee control and supervision drastically. So not only are we picking up revenue with the federal detainees coming in, but we have also reduced our expense on the number of people that were in our system that are now on EHM, and we hope to expand that too. That is being solely financed and controlled by the Sheriff's Department. So once again, he mentioned it briefly, EHM, I just wanted to clarify that.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Leonard. Other comments or questions? Seeing none in the room, and from any on the phone? Hearing none, clerk, call the roll.
Allen?
Aye.
Hanson?
Yes.
Hosheit?
Yes.
Iqbal?
Iqbal, yes.
Kenyon?
Yes.
Leonard?
Yes.
Lewis?
Absolutely, yes.
Sanchez?
Yes.
Shefflo?
Yes.
Surges?
Yes.
Weber?
Yes.
Ornicki? Yes.
Okay, the motion passes. Next, may I have a motion and a second for a resolution further amending the CAC guidelines for nonprofit grant eligibility to include Valley Industrial Association, VIA. So moved by Mr. Surges, second by Mr. Leonard. Any discussion, questions? Ms. Allen?
May I just ask, is this being included with the Chamber of Commerce money, which would make sense? This is kind of a variation on a Chamber of Commerce.
It's like that, and those items, if I'm not mistaken, I'd be happy to be corrected, are under the small business grants. So yes, this would go into small business grant pot or out of that pot, and that's the same pot that the Chamber of Commerce come out of, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct, Mr. Hosheit?
I'm not sure. We didn't discuss this at committee.
Okay. Okay, I checked yesterday, unless I made a really dumb mistake, which that can happen. That's the answer to that question. Mr. Hanson.
Thank you. We haven't discussed it at committee, and I'm open to changing the eligibility requirements for possible applicants, but that needs to be a discussion we have at a committee level first. one qualified applicant may not be within the guidelines right now, but if we're going to expand it, we need to talk about who we're going to expand it to, not just one entity.
Okay, Mr. Surges, would you
Just-
rise, please?
Yes, just to be expeditious, I would look at this as a placeholder to move to the county board, and we can discuss this at the CAC tomorrow.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay, any further conversation? Seeing none, any?
Sanchez here.
On the phone?
Sanchez.
Okay, Mr. Sanchez?
Is the deadline not passed for the nonprofit application?
The deadline is passed, is to answer that question. VIA put a application in to like a placeholder for consideration contingent on what CAC, Executive Committee, and the board approved. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
I'd be interested in Mr. Hoscheid's thoughts on this.
Sorry?
I was curious what Mr. Hoscheid's thoughts are on this.
Mr. Hoscheit, would you, do you have any thoughts on this? Would you rise, please?
If we're going to exercise consistent practice throughout the meeting, as we discussed our prior issues here, we would send this to CAC committee and then bring it back for discussion. So I don't, there's questions to be answered. I have no objection to the organization that's requesting the funds. I would want to know what other similar entities may be out there that would include it, because in order to be fair, if there's other agencies like this, we would want to consider their eligibility as well. We are, moving closer to to the finish line here, so time is of the essence. But I don't have a handle on how many other similar organizations there are.
Okay. Would it be consensus of this group to, as I think Mr. Surges suggested, that we have a placeholder on the board agenda off consent pending further discussion at tomorrow's CAC meeting? Would that be a solution agreeable to practically everybody? I see some heads nodding. Mr. Hoscheit, Mr. Hanson? Would that be
One approach
acceptable?
would be to move this to the CAC committee for consideration, and then we can move it to the full board.
You have a CAC committee is already posted, so it would miss the Consideration Open Meetings Act. I'd be happy to put it on the board agenda, unless what's really happening here is we're trying to exclude the Valley Industrial Association through procedural.
That's not really
means.
what we're doing, and you know
Okay.
that.
All right. Well, then why wouldn't we just say, sure, let's put it on the agenda contingent on the discussion and approval by CAC tomorrow?
Why didn't we, when we considered the workforce development issue, you state the real reason that you had the issue?
Yes, I'll tell you the
But,
real reason.
no,
We
I know
went
what the
over
real
this.
reason is. We all know that. With respect to this issue, I don't want to create a problem for the Industrial Association. I have no problem putting a placeholder on the full board agenda so we can vote after CAC considers it tomorrow.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Clerk will call the roll.
Allen?
Aye.
Hanson? Yes. Hoscheit?
Yes.
Iqbal?
Iqbal, yes.
Kenyon?
Yes.
Leonard?
Yes.
Lewis?
Yes.
Sanchez?
Yes.
Jefflo?
Yes.
Surges? Thomas?
Yes.
Burr?
Yes.
Warnicki? Yes.
Okay, motion passes. Next, may I have a motion and a second approving the emergency purchase affidavit for electrical generating equipment with CARES Act relief funds? So moved by Mr. Leonard, second by Ms. Allen. This is, let's see, there's a note that went out from Mr. Fonstock and with Ms. Jeffers, Ms. Sparks, Mr. Onsick, basically that contained a spreadsheet that let's see, Information Technology Department had been asked to complete. And it basically said the items on this list were purchased as direct result and in response to COVID-19. The purchases were, number one, were not budgeted in the fiscal year 2020 fiscal year. Number two, the purchases were a direct result of CDC, IDPH, State of Illinois Governor's executive orders, health, public safety, judiciary, executive directives to provide telework capabilities for social distancing, stay-at-home orders, and occupancy restrictions on office and meeting spaces. The purchases were made before December 30th, 2020. Purchases were reviewed, deemed necessary to respond to COVID-19, and approved by the Executive Director of Health Department, Sheriff, Chief Judge, and Chief Information Officer. So it's the description of basically what this does. Any discussion? Mr. Surgis.
You know what, I'm on item 5 and 6 here. I think I do business with 2 of the vendors, and I'll be abstaining. I'm in full support of it, but I feel it's appropriate to abstain.
Okay. We'll note that, Madam Clerk. So, okay, other conversation? Seeing none. Oh, Mr. Hanson?
Regarding number 5, I'll probably be in support of it too. Why is there nothing presented to us in terms of what we purchased, what we paid for it, and
So,
in here today?
Hey, Mr. Feinstock?
so the emergency purchase affidavit is in response to the purchase of a generator, which was approved by CAC and subsequently the county board. So there was a $250,000, and in order to proceed with the installation services and electrical engineering that has to happen, we exceeded the $250,000 that the CAC committee authorized. So the first resolution is the emergency purchase affidavit gives us the authority to continue installing the generator beyond the $250,000. We still have the subsequent submittals to the outside accounting firm for the CARES Act reimbursement and final fiscal year end balancing our capital. So what we were looking to do was just to make sure that we had the purchase affidavit to continue with the project. The generator under the original 250,000 is already on its way. We're just going to exceed that because we have to rework electrical for the transformer and the power outside this building. So,
And that's what threw me for the loop, because I thought we had approved the generator. I didn't
They
know
did.
what else has to be approved to complete the project.
that's the balance, 130,000 in electrical engineering above the 250. We're going to end up replacing a transformer in order to do the transfer switch that was recommended by the city of Geneva. This building transfer switch is, I think, it's over 20 years old, and they were recommending that we not use the existing electrical transfer switches and gear in the process of putting in, a new generator. So we're going to be putting in a power generator sometime in the next 2 months is the delivery schedule, and the balance of that work was approved by the health department and the sheriff and the IT department. We've also been working with building management, but the difference in the allocation is what we were concerned about, is going ahead with something that was authorized at 250, but now we're beyond that.
And lastly, just to refresh my memory, that backup electrical system will support the entire campus here, or
Yes.
just building A?
Oh, the other buildings have power generation, but in response to COVID, this building provides so many functions from, streaming these meetings, holding these meetings, hosting these meetings, direct responses to, vaccination in the auditorium. We do vaccine clinics. We also do all of the payroll, payable, accounts receivable, everything happens in this building, even permits up in the development department. So when you have everybody trying to do telework and you get power interruption, it is incredibly disruptive. So having a power facility that we could run, regardless of the city power is to us is critical. It really is a huge disruption when the power is out. I mean, we can't do very much with this campus.
But does it support all the buildings in the campus or just this one?
This one is for this main building.
Okay.
There is a generator for building B where the clerk and IT is. There's a generator for building C and the coroner's office. They both have a generator already. The yellow house does not have a generator. We're working with facilities to see if, as we turn down the coroner's office, is it possible to have the yellow building pick up electric from the coroner's generator? That's a possibility we might look at in the next few months. But with all the telework and the different things that we're doing live online, it is very difficult to do this without power. It just doesn't work.
Thank you.
Okay, other thoughts or questions? Seeing none, from anybody on the phone? Hearing none, clerk call the roll.
Allen,
Aye.
Hanson,
Yes.
O'Shea,
Yes.
Iqbal,
Iqbal, yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Yes.
Lewis. Lewis. Sanchez,
Yes.
Shefflo,
Yes.
Surges,
Abstain.
Thomas,
I can't.
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Yes.
Oniki. Yes. Thomas,
Thomas, yes.
Okay, motion passes. Next, may I have a motion and a second for resolution amending Resolution 2302, authorizing reimbursement from CARES Act funds, Kane County departments and elected officials for non-payroll expenses, that's IT, finance, et cetera, allowing flexibility for priorities in attachment A. So that's, go ahead, Ms. Allen. Ms. Allen.
I'll move it.
Oh, okay, so moved by Ms. Allen, second by Ms. Wonicky. Discussion. So this is a matter of, let's see, within the different agencies and departments, a budget has been approved. There are some things that cannot be accomplished. The agency heads, departments are asking, and probably one of the things that CAC will talk about tomorrow, that if they stay within the original budgeted amount, can they adjust the priority to get the most done with the dollars that have already been allocated? So I believe that that is an accurate description. Any discussion, conversation?
This is Ms. Thomas. I have a question.
Ms. Thomas, you have the floor.
Can we include attachment A when this moves to the full board? I mean, as a member of the CAT committee, it's challenging for me to keep
Yes.
track of all the changes. So I think the full board will appreciate having the attachment A included.
Yes, good suggestion. Okay, note to, is that okay, Karen? Okay. And that list, I believe, comes from Joe Onsick? We have it already, okay. Fine, good. Any further questions or comments? Seeing none, hearing none, clerk call the roll.
Allen,
Aye.
Hanson,
Yes.
O'Shea,
Yes.
Iqbal,
Iqbal, yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Leonard,
Yes.
Lewis, Sanchez,
Yes.
Shefflo,
Yes.
Surges,
Abstain.
Thomas,
Thomas, yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Oniki. Yes.
Okay, the motion passes. May I have a motion and a second for resolution amending resolution number 2273, authorizing preliminary approval of costs incurred by County of Kane for coronavirus relief funds. May I have a motion? So moved by Ms. Allen, second by Mr. Weber. Any discussion? Seeing none from anybody on the phone? We'll do the same, Ms. Thomas, as far as the attachment for the board. And I'm sure that this will be discussed tomorrow at CAC. I'm not sure, but I assume. Any further? Seeing and hearing none, clerk call the roll.
Allen,
Aye.
Hanson, Hoshait,
Yes.
Iqbal,
Iqbal, yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Leonard,
Yes.
Lewis,
Yes.
Sanchez,
Yes.
Shefflo,
Yes.
Surges,
Yes.
Thomas,
Thomas, yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Warnicki. Yes.
Okay, motion passes. Okay, in CAC committee, these are resolutions. Mr. Hoshait is chairman of CAC.
I'll move both resolutions.
Okay, so moved by Mr. Hoshait, second by Mr. Surges. Mr. Hoshait.
The first resolution simply allows for 100% distribution of the funds for the municipal allocations. We originally had approved 80% with a 20% holdback to see if there were reasons, contingencies or other things, but the committee has deemed it appropriate to do 100% distribution at this point. And then item 2 is a resolution that just defines the tax exempt status that Chamber of Commerce organizations have. It's not, I don't believe it's 501c3, but it's another designation.
C6.
C6 under the IRS code.
Thank you, Mr. Hoshait. Other questions, comments? Seeing none. Any from anyone on the phone? Hearing none. Clerk, call the roll.
Allen,
Aye.
Hoshait,
Yes.
Hanson, Iqbal,
Iqbal, yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Leonard,
Yes.
Lewis,
Yes.
Sanchez,
Yes.
Shefflo,
Yes.
Surges, Thomas,
Thomas, yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Warnicki. Yes.
Okay. Motion passes. Okay, no need for executive session today. Committee reports under agriculture. Mr. Kenyon, can you give us a report on crop yields and prices? Just brief, beans and corn, important to our economy.
The outlook is bright, just like today. We're going to have higher prices for soybeans, higher prices for corn, and the yield's going to be slightly down. Our people on the other side of the world are still hungry. They depend on our corn and our soybeans. Unfortunately, I think our prices in the grocery store are going up a little bit, right? Meat, poultry. Gosh, when we got married, you could buy chicken for 25 cents a pound. Of course, beer was cheaper too. But I think everything's looking up in the agriculture sector.
Dairy industry okay?
Yes.
All right. Okay, thank you, Mr. Kenyon, from agriculture. Then can someone from the CAC committee, this was committed at the committee of the whole, we may have to come back to it, but someone from the CAC committee, can you provide by when will the final approvals for eligibility be decided by, the expenses have been approved by the board. The state's attorney, I understand that they're making, they're saying they're making recommendations, but want somebody else to approve, to do final approval. And then the outside accountants, KEB. So do we have someone from CAC who can report? Mr. Hoshait has left the room. Can someone report by when will we have that essential? We have agency heads and department heads who are saying, I thought we had it approved by the board. When will we hear from the state's attorney's office and the KEB? Can someone respond to that?
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Surges here. I won't speak for the chairman of the committee, but as I picked up my 4-inch thick binder, today.
That's local government.
Yeah, it's just going to take a little while to get through this, and I'm sure by the end of the meeting tomorrow, we will be able to answer that question.
Okay.
That's the best I can do right now.
All right. Thank you for volunteering. If and when Mr. Hoshait rejoins us, I'll re-ask that question. The next one, okay, let's see. Okay, it is a very important piece that we're going into the election cycle now. Mr. Shefflow,
I'm
if
in a
you
meeting
have
right now.
Any thoughts for us today? Several items. I appreciate, this morning when I woke up and, got the Aurora Beacon News, it has county clerk assuring people that, everything is going to be okay. And that's good. And we all support those efforts. 1.8 million mail-in ballots have gone out, not requests for people to mail them in, but the actual mail-in ballots. In Kane County, there have been 86,630 by an article in Kane County Connects. There were pictures in one of the issues recently of these very important documents stacked up on their way out in the mail. 86,630 versus all the votes cast for instance, 4 years ago for chairman, it's 60% of the 2016 votes cast are going out, come back in mail. Now, I believe, just my own opinion, that if you're not scared by that, you're either not paying attention closely enough, or you don't care enough, or it's something even worse. This is really a challenge, and we all do support what the state's attorney, what the county clerk's doing. There was another article, State's Attorney's Office, here's what to do if you witness questionable election, activity. That's good. That's a good notice to send out. I would ask Mr. Shefflow if you would put on the agenda for your next meeting that comes up in, within a week to 10 days, how many times, a report from the state's attorney of how many times we have investigated and prosecuted any voter fraud in Kane County in the last 3 elections. I hope that it is a significant, not a significant number of, potential fraud, but I hope that when we say this is what you do, unless you make the assumption that there is no voter fraud and inappropriate activity in Kane County, which is absolutely Pollyannish and impossible, then what are we going to do to make sure that when we make that announcement, it actually, something happens there? Because I have personal experience of a person calling in and that being absolutely ignored. So if you can ask the state's attorney civil division that sends out, well, we're ready to go after bad people who are destroying the sanctity of, the democracy. Let's see what we've actually done in the last 3 elections. And then I do think that the flow chart is very important. And if you flow chart of the process, ballot process, and then critical security measures. I'm sure that Jack has those all in place. It's a benefit to all constituents. It's also a benefit to other county clerks in state of Illinois. But it is good to have a picture of, well, what is this process now that we have in Illinois 1.8 million ballots going out, 86,630 of them in Kane County. And then we have had a couple of people who have called in to my office and complained that they have not received return telephone calls. There's an optometrist had called in. She was concerned about, I won't read through it because actually it's so unpleasant. We do have to at least respond when we have complaints. So any of those, please keep in touch with these folks. Mr. Shefflow, would you rise, please?
Calls are not returned by.
Here, I'm sorry to make it like general like that, but okay. Dr. Mary Jordan, optometrist, Kane County, called to speak with you. This is to Chris. She would like to speak with you as she has many concerns she would like for you to address, okay? I understand internal controls, so I know what I can do, with these as far as she wants me to address them, but that's why I bring them to this group under the assumption that the board members run the day-to-day operations of the county. So she voted at the government center last week and is, quote, creeped out, close quote, by the lack of sanitation. She said that there were no markings outside for people to stand to stay socially distanced. She said that inside people were given clipboards and pens and that they are not being cleaned in between. She mentioned that the CDC guidelines are not being met, and it is just a matter of time before there is a big outbreak and is very concerned. She has called several places, including the health department and Jack Cunningham's office. She stated that she has left 50 messages and has not received a call back in 5 days. She is not sure if anyone has even listened to her messages, but she is getting frustrated and considering calling the press. She also mentioned that when calling health department, you are asked what language. It goes into another item, which is an automatic. Does it default to English, the official language of the United States? That's a separate issue. So I made a note to myself. She had left messages for Raymond, Fabian. She got through to Celeste. Celeste called back, couldn't handle the question. Then where it was left, and this was on October 2nd, it was left that we pass this on over to Jack. So it is really important. I mean, every telephone call, every email that comes into at least my office, and I know the department directors, the agency heads, the countywide elected officials, all of those need to be returned. Very important. Let's use an example of the sacrifices that people make so that we have fair elections. Let's take a Tammy Duckworth, Senator Duckworth, okay? She's deployed, she's pulling out of taking Marines, taking them off a battlefield. A rocket-propelled grenade hits in the cockpit of her helicopter. I was there at Walter Reed Hospital the day that she received the Bronze Star and Purple Heart, just by coincidence, but I was invited to attend in the cafeteria the presentation. She goes, it was really something. There was like a starburst in my lab. And I remember being really upset that I couldn't move the pedals. I couldn't move the pedals and it wasn't responding. And it's because both of her legs had been severed by the explosion. So, gosh darn, when people make those kinds of sacrifices for us, the least we can do as elected officials is do this stuff right. Just do it right. It's not hard. When you can repossess a person's home, if they don't give you the revenue for your operation, I mean, what does it take? When you have that kind of power in people's lives and it just becomes a matter of how money is spent, that is easy business. All of us, there are people in this room who work very hard when they try to generate revenue, when they have to go out and make sales calls, get thrown out of places, when they get yelled at, when they have to compete for revenue. We don't have to compete for revenue. All we have to do is disclose it properly and then spend it properly. So we need to make sure that we do everything. And my experience in 30 years has been that the people who break these rules are not the people who sign up for the Marines or for the Navy or for the Coast Guard and go out and put their lives on the line. They're punks who think that it's fun to interfere with this process. They think they're clever, and they're just nothing kind of people. So don't let them get away with it. Okay. Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, thank you. Ms. Wodnicki.
Thank you. It's a little bit of a segue, what's been on my mind a little bit. I'm 100% in favor of Valley Industrial Association being included in our stimulus program or our CARES Act program. But something that's bothered me a little bit is when we run for county board, one of our we oversee departments. We do that. We oversee committees, and I think we do a really good job at that. But something else that we really should be doing is we're public servants. So we take county information to our constituents, and our constituents come to us or to me, and I bring those concerns to the county. And it just bothers me a little bit that Valley Industrial had to come in late in the game. The library districts had to come in late in the game. The minute we were told the stimulus money was being offered from the feds to, the state of Illinois to Kane County, county board members should have contacted whoever would be capable of receiving those funds. I immediately called the township and the village then immediately contacted the businesses. And it's just something that's been on my mind that I had to get off my chest. I think that it's just our responsibility to bring that information to the eligible organizations and businesses, constituents, whoever it may be, units of government. And that's all I wanted to say.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Wodnicki. Certainly important.
Mr. Chairman,
yes.
could I just respond to Barb?
Of course.
I want you to know personally that I reached out to every one of the mayors in my district and their administrators to make sure that they were involved. But as early as this morning, going through the reports from Fabiola, there is still townships that have yet to turn in anything. And I've emailed her twice while in today's meetings, asking, are we sure that we reached out to them? And she has assured me upwards of 3, 4, 5 times via US mail, via email. So I believe that process has happened. I know that Matt has walked as many businesses as I have with flyers walking in the door. We are by no means perfect. And I'm not even suggesting that, but it is not for a genuine lack of effort to get the information out there.
And I agree, Cliff, and I'm not pointing fingers at anybody. It's just something that I think is our responsibility. I know our township, I contacted Plato and Virgil, they were not interested, but I know Campton was extremely interested because we have the open space program and it's used very much like the King County Forest Preserve open spaces. So I'm not pointing fingers. It just, I feel kind of bad that Valley Industrial Association had to come in, at this late hour, at the 11th hour. The library districts pretty much had to come in at the 11th hour. It was just something that's been on my mind.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Wodnicki. Thank you, Mr. Surgis. Mr. Hanson.
Just to reiterate what Cliff said, there was an outreach to eligible applicants. The business program, the non-for-profit program may be unique in that it's a bigger universe, but when it comes to the smaller units of government, the libraries, the fire protection districts, park districts, they were all contacted multiple times. And you have had taxing bodies, you had units of government that declined their eligible award. I don't want to live in that town, just saying. But there was definitely an effort made by the folks that are administering the program and from this county to especially these taxing bodies, that's what they are, to make sure they understood this is available, here's the program. And certainly it had to have gotten through to enough people because you had a number of applicants and why some did not or complete it properly, that's a question for each one of those individually, but I don't believe there was a lack of marketing effort or awareness that was provided by the folks here at the county level to the eligible applicants.
My guess is that there's going to be a lot of discussion tomorrow on, where we are, what we need to do, CAC, and then in support of the whole board, or from the whole board. Is there, I know that it's already been mentioned today that the cutoff has taken place for the number of small businesses and nonprofit organizations. Does someone from the CAC committee have an idea of how many applications in both those two categories have come in?
I don't have specifics. I've heard that the business program was undersubscribed, and I don't know about the non-for-profits. I know they were still trying to assimilate all that information for tomorrow, but I heard the word undersubscribed.
Okay, so any thoughts on that? How many applications and how much has been spoken for?
My information's days old, but I heard fewer than 200 from the business side,
So-
from the,
Small business.
yes.
Okay, so if they're fully funded, if all those applications are correct, if they're all accurate, 100%, and they get the maximum allocation of 20,000, let's say there's 250 of those applications, that would mean that we have $5 million requested, and CAC will go through the process and all the approvals go through. But that would mean that that $3 million has not been requested. And I hope that one of the things that's discussed at CAC tomorrow is, I know that people want money. And I know that other counties in surrounding area had like upwards to 1,800 in theirs. They're slightly larger, but 1,200, 1,500, and 1,800. And then if ours is like 200 or 250, what's in the nature of what we either fully communicated or how the plan was structured, we should be asking and talking about that, I would think, at CAC committee tomorrow. So, by the way, one of the things that I'd like to get consensus that on the positive side is the work that's been done on health insurance in Kane County over the last 3 to 5 years. What has come, I think that in human services, the work that's been done by, first it was initiated Bill Leonard and then Cliff Surgis when you came forward as chairman, succeeding chairman of that committee, the work that Mike Baker has done. I think that needs to be like spotlighted because that really is millions of dollars saved for our taxpayers. It's a good thing that's been accomplished. Then finally,
If I could segue on that for just 1
Yes.
second. The online benefits portal went live on October 1st. So everybody in this room that serves as a department, that serves as a chairman of a committee that has a department head, please filter down. I'm hearing very positive things. Joe Onzik caught one error that my understanding is that was corrected within an hour of finding it. But the portal is open. It is good to go. The biometric wellness virtual enrollment form is out there. And for those of us like myself, I have yet to complete my sexual harassment training that is mandatory and needs to be in by the end of next month. So if you've not completed that, please go online and get that done as well.
Okay, thank you, Cliff. Let's see, and then finally, I hope that it's okay that for this campus, during this time, we did have the beginning of a lot of campaign signs on government property. I do appreciate the support, the cooperation of both parties, both major parties in Kane County, agreed that it'd be okay if we keep this campus as beautiful as it is. There are lots of places where you can ask private people in their homes if they'll put up, or in their businesses, put up campaign signs. But as far as here on this campus, Let's keep it beautiful and nonpartisan, not even bipartisan. That means everybody's sign go up and it kind of look not as good as it does in God's beauty. So I do appreciate the cooperation that's come from at least the two main parties. Now, that I understand that somebody could make an argument against that. If someone would want to disagree with that and have a vote on it, I'd be happy to do that. Just bring a resolution forward and we'll vote it up or down. But generally, I think that one, we leave that one alone and just keep it beautiful. People can come in peace and beauty of this campus and then exercise their right. So good. That's all I have now. How about other committee reports? Okay, seeing none. Any from people on the phone? Okay, and hearing none. I apologize for becoming so emotional on the importance of the voting. I used to sleep like a baby when, anyway, that's an important, that is an important thing. So enough said. A motion to adjourn. So moved by Mr. Kenyon, second by Mr. Weber. I believe that we can do this voice vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Ayes have it.
Adjourn.
Yeah.